My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi everyone, my name is Emilie Given, and today's leadership quote is one of my favorites. Empowered women empower women.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Thank you so much for listening all around the world. And here's your host, my dada.
Hey friends, welcome to episode 101. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/101. And I just wanted to invite you to join our Slack community at slack.leaderassistant.com. Hop in there, jump into the intros channel, and introduce yourself, and we'll see you in there. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm speaking with Emilie Given. Emilie is a wife, boy mom, and entrepreneur. She founded She's a Given, a Seattle-based virtual assistant company in 2018 so that she could spend more time with her family. Emilie, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing well. What part of the world are you in?
I live in Linwood, Washington, which is just north of Seattle.
Awesome. So is it kind of chilly up there today?
It is, yes. It's very cold. We just had 35 days of rain. So
wow.
It's been really rainy, but I grew up here, so I'm used to it.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's jump right in. And why don't you tell us about your very first job and then maybe what skills or lessons you learned in that role that you still use today?
Okay. So my very first job was being a barista at a kiosk inside of a Safeway. And, that's not very correlated to what I do now, but I would say that it was my first glimpse into customer service and building relationships with my regular customers and my people.
Awesome. Yeah, customer service is a big part of assisting people, so definitely a good start.
Right.
So when did you kind of transition throughout your career and become an assistant?
I'm sorry, did you mean first career job or first job in general?
No, you're fine. You could say, okay. What was your job after that, and kind of how did you get into the EA role?
I went to trade school after high school to become a medical assistant, and I was a medical assistant for 6 years prior to going into management, still in healthcare. So I was always in a support position, and then I was in management, but also under physicians, still supporting them more at an executive level. So I didn't love being in healthcare and not dealing with patients. So I decided to look around, and I actually organically applied to an EA job at Amazon online, and they called me back.
Wow.
And so, right, I've heard it's really hard to get an interview organically without knowing somebody. I don't know if that's true. But I felt really lucky to get that. And the woman who hired me actually had a background in healthcare as well. And so she saw that transference was great. You had been supporting physicians. Now you can go to support executives. And she saw that in me and helped me develop it.
So how long were you at Amazon?
I was at Amazon for 4.5 years.
Nice. So what was it like working for one of the largest companies in the world?
I loved that job. I really did. And I wouldn't have left if I wasn't doing what I am now. It was amazing to be around such innovative people all the time. The company moves so fast. They're always trying new things. I learned so much working from there about professionalism, about thinking big, about being innovative, and learning more like it's okay to fail. And that was probably one of my favorite things that I learned from Amazon, was that it's okay to fail, and that you'll improve upon it, and move forward.
So could you share an example of maybe something that was innovative?
So actually the team that I love about the assistant role in general, or being
just
at Amazon?
Yeah, just being at Amazon. You mentioned, they were so innovative. What's just even a simple example of something you saw in the team or in the company, just being on the inside, that was innovative, that you don't have a non-disclosure agreement with?
Oh, right. So the team that I last left was called DEX, which is Delivery Experience in Robotics. So when I was there, they created the sidewalk delivery robot. It's called Scout now. And they were actually on Ellen Monday of this week. So Scout was on Ellen, and they have delivery robots launching. They're here in Seattle area, and it's pretty cool. It drives around the neighborhood and delivers packages. And it was just so amazing to be supporting the leaders behind that. It was just really inspiring.
Wow. Yeah, that is cool. Kind of be behind the scenes, and then it's finally out. It's awesome.
Right. It was really cool. And we got to host the big launch parties and work with the PR team. And it was just a really great experience.
So did they have the robot at the launch party?
They did. Yeah.
Nice. So what would you say to assistants? You worked literally on a team that built a robot. What would you say to assistants who are kind of trying to figure out what they think about the whole AI robotic future, and then how it relates to the assistant role?
I think that really depends on the type of people that you're supporting, right? And the type of assistant work that you have been doing prior. For me, it was a very tech-based team. However, there were a lot of operations teams within it that weren't necessarily tech-based. So I would say for an assistant wanting to explore AI robotics, I would say maybe go spend the day, if you're already internal in the company, with that team and see if it's something that you were interested in, what the EA day-to-day does. And then if you're interviewing for a role in a company like that, when they're working on something like that, I think it's really important to ask what the teams do. So a summary of what this team does, what leader you're going to be supporting, and just really have a good understanding of that before you jump into it.
So just like maybe a general curiosity.
Yes, but I think it's also important to really know, like deep dive into what they do on a day-to-day basis rather than know what they do as a whole. I mean, that's important too, but really diving into the details is important too, just because it is so intricate. There's so many different things that they can be doing, and they're all different roles that work together.
Yeah. Nice. So tell us a little bit about your story of leaving Amazon and becoming a virtual assistant.
So I had a child, my son, EJ, 3.5 years ago. And Amazon had a great maternity leave. I had a very supportive leadership team. Everyone was great. But I actually almost died in childbirth. And it was such a life-shattering experience for me that I couldn't stop focusing on the fact that time with my family was truly precious. And I really wanted to figure out a way where I could work from home more. And my team this was a team prior to Dex Robotics. They were so supportive. I was working from home 3 days a week. And then, we got so busy in the new team that wasn't really working out. So I could work from home sometimes. It wasn't enough for me personally. I was driving an hour, sometimes hour and a half each way in traffic work. And so I would leave in the morning before he was awake, my son, and get home and only have about an hour and a half with him. And that just wasn't enough for me. So I decided to figure out a way where I could still make money, because we have to be a 2-income family personally, I could still make money and I could work from home and spend more time with him. And so I knew of the virtual assistant role. And so I decided to try it out as a side hustle and see what it was all about. And so that I picked up a client for about 10 hours a week that I would do evenings and weekends work on, and then kind of prove to myself that I could get clients and make this a full-time position. So I pitched it to my husband and he said, you know what, go for it. And I finally did.
Awesome. So how long did it take you to get kind of up to where you wanted to be with as far as the number of clients when you left Amazon?
How long did it take? So I started as a freelance VA on the side probably 6 months prior to putting in my notice. No, that's wrong. A year prior to putting in my notice. I signed a 10-hour-a-week client, and then I kept increasing. So at one point, right before I left, probably about 2 months before I left, I was at 40 hours a week as a virtual assistant and 40 hours a week at Amazon. So I was working 80-hour weeks, which was insane. And finally, what made me realize, hey, Emily, you can actually do this full time. You are doing it full time. And you should just take a leap of faith and trust yourself that it's going to work. This is going to be great. So I did, and I'm really glad that I did. It's been the best experience I've ever had.
So do you have any tips for other virtual assistants that want to, find more clients?
So my first clients, actually, I found them on Upwork, which is a site for freelancers. And so I just created a profile to get my name out there. There are thousands of people looking for assistance on Upwork. And that's how I got my first couple of clients. And then once you get testimonials underneath your belt, what I did was I built a website, put their testimonials on there. And there are a lot of ways to get clients. You can use LinkedIn. You can use, which is something that I do frequently. I also engage in a lot of Facebook groups targeted to my niche, which is, well, I have two niches. One is female-owned companies in the Seattle area. That's really specific, I know. And the other one is startup companies in the Seattle area and small businesses in Seattle. So I'm pretty Seattle-centric. I really believe in supporting the local economy, and I think that there's value to be added in having an assistant that is, one, virtual, that I provide those benefits, but also that I could bump into at the grocery store or meet for coffee if I wanted to or needed to.
Yeah, I like that.
So sorry, I kind of went off on tangent. Facebook groups. Facebook groups are really great. The number one tip I would give VAs in Facebook groups, because there are a ton of VAs. I mean, I would say that add value before anything else. So if somebody asks a question, answer it without the expectation of them becoming a client. Just be very helpful in the online space, and then you'll come to be top of mind when they think of, who am I going to hire as a virtual assistant?
So do you specialize, or do you think in general, should virtual assistants specialize, or should they be more of a Jack or Jane of all trades? In other words, should virtual assistants focus on, I'm going to be a graphic designer virtual assistant, or I'm going to be a scheduling and travel itinerary virtual assistant? Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I at first would say start as Jack of all trades, Jane of all trades. But I'm realizing now that I personally want to niche down in my agency model. So I would love to provide executive support, which is, calendar, travel, expenses. I'm great at that. That's what I did at Amazon. That's what I love. That's what EAs in general can pick that up and start quickly. So that's maybe something I would tell an EA who wants to become a VA, is to stick with or start with executive support because that's what they know. And the need is out there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if a virtual assistant wants to specialize down the road, I think that's completely fine. There are VAs who just are graphic designers. There are VAs who are just branding specialists. There are VAs who just do outreach for speakers and podcasting, things like that. And I think that there's no right or wrong answer for this. Just know whatever you do, whether you're niching down or whether you're being broad, know where your target market is and go there.
So what about tips for managing multiple executives? You know, I kind of tried out the whole VA thing when I was in between jobs and had one client for about a month, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to have 6 bosses. So how do you manage multiple clients and multiple executives?
It's definitely a learning curve. And you know, when you're a VA, you don't have 6 bosses for 40 hours a week each. You generally would have 6 bosses for 2 hours a day, or 6, you know what I mean, 5 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I would really, this is my number one tip, is to time block. So you color code your calendar. You work on, if you're set up for 2 hours a day on one client, you color code it 2 hours a day, time block it on your calendar. And then the next 2 hours would be your different client. And the next one would be another client. Because if you try to do a bunch of 15-minute tasks here and 15-minute tasks there, you're just not as productive as you would be if you just sat down and did it all in a big chunk. So that's what I would say for managing multiple clients, as well as having labels set up in your inbox. So you can flag them, different clients. Also, something that we personally do is we set up email accounts for each of our clients. So admin@xyzcompany.com, and it goes on our phone. So we know where it's coming from and who we're responding from.
So how many assistants work with you now?
We are a group of 10 right now.
Awesome. So when did you realize, I need to hire more on my team versus just doing it, solo?
It was pretty quickly after I left Amazon. I figured I could only work 160 hours a month, right? 40 hours a week. And I wasn't comfortable with that income cap, honestly. I wanted to scale and I wanted to make a bigger impact and I wanted to make more money. And I knew that the way to do that was to hire a team. So I did that really quickly.
So any tips for that process as people branch out and want to start their own VA team?
I'm actually going to be creating a course on this year. Yes. So a couple of tips that I have would be to hire the right people for the right jobs. So if you're going to be niched down as a graphic design agency, then make sure you have people with graphic design experience and you're not hiring those Jane of all trades. I would say get specialized with it. I would also say that you should have systems set up before you hire people. So if you know how you work with a client, you know how you schedule meetings, how you want them to be labeled, how you set up an inbox to be managed, how any process that you have in your head, because you as one person might have it in your head, but if you get hit by a bus or if you are training someone how to do it, it's much easier to do it if you already have a written SOP out.
So where did you find your team?
I found my team in a variety of ways. Some of my team comes from Upwork, actually. I met them on Upwork. Some of my team comes from Facebook groups for executive assistants. Some of my team comes from people that I've worked with previously in previous roles. Kind of comes from everywhere. But I do have an interview process, resume review, a skills assessment, an initial phone screen with my HR person, Amber, and then a phone screen with me to make sure it's all a good fit.
So what are some questions that you ask in the interview process?
How you deal with difficult clients. Give me an example of how you deal with a difficult client. Give me an example of how you prioritize what you need to do. Give me an example of a time someone was really vague, but you knew you couldn't go back and forth asking a bunch of questions about it. What would you do if I generally come up with scenarios. What would you do if I said, schedule me a flight to Boston on Tuesday next week? And so I want to know what the process is. Would you find out my home airport? How would you screenshot the results and send it to me with pricing? Would you ask me questions before you did that? And that's what I want to know. Do you have the foresight to figure it out by yourself first and then fill in the gaps? I think that's the most important thing when I'm working with somebody. I want to know that they don't ask questions that they can solve for themselves.
Are there challenges? I'm sure there are. I know there are. I've tried it myself. But what are the challenges for kind of running your own business?
Oh, man. That's a loaded question. I think, honestly, the challenges of running your own business is time management, for sure. I mean, that's the number one challenge. Time management. You can be great at time management, but there are always fire drills. And, you have to swap priorities really quickly and answer things that are emergent. And then you have a lead comes in who wants to jump on a phone call in 30 minutes, and you have to rearrange your day to figure that out. And there's a lot to do. So my team has been amazing. So outsourcing to my team has been really beneficial to me. But challenges for running my own business, yeah, that's a loaded question there.
Yeah. So what about managing constant interruptions? Maybe just an example of how you manage all the interruptions that I'm sure you get day in and day out.
I think one of the biggest tips I can say about managing constant interruptions is when I'm really focusing on something, make sure my phone is upside down so I'm not looking at the screen. And I would say having my inbox closed, which is really hard. It's like a control thing for me to not see an email when it comes in and respond right away, because I'm neurotic. I check my phone every 5 seconds, and I'm one of those people that refreshes like with the thumb drag if I'm doing it, I'll do it 5 times to make sure that everything's loaded. And I think a lot of us EAs are like that, right? So I would say really make sure you're setting yourself up to not be interrupted if you're deep in a project. Like turn your phone over, close your email, and work on your project for, even if it's just a 30-minute increment, do it without distractions, then check, then work for your thing on for 30 more minutes. I would say that's my best tip.
Yeah. How about managing an executive's inbox? Any tips for that? Definitely
create labels. I would say create filters as well. I have a filter, except for something I learned with filters is I set one up for newsletters, but I set it up for the word newsletter. And we actually help clients with newsletters. So I was finding that I wasn't getting client emails, and they would respond to me, why didn't you respond to me email? And I found out that they were getting filtered into that. So pro tip, don't do that.
Oops.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. And then another one would be, there's a free Chrome extension called Gorgias. It's Gorgias. And it creates amazing, beautiful email templates that they just come in a drop down in your inbox. So if you are in your email typing, you can just hit the button and it pulls in all of your templates. I know Gmail has templates too, but it's just so user-friendly and easy, and that's maybe one of my favorite things. Also, managing executives' inbox, find out what they sound like before you start supporting them. So find out their tone in their emails, find out what kind of verbiage they use, and try to emulate them and realize that you are an extension of them. And sometimes you're going to be acting as them and not yourself. So portray them.
Yeah, that's great. Love it. So if you could snap your fingers and instantly give all assistants more of something, what would it be?
Respect.
Nice.
Seriously.
RESPECT.
RESPECT. I really think that the EA role in general is not as respected as it should be. As some executives are great and really appreciative and understand what it's like to be an EA, but some people treat them like peons, and it's not right. I mean, a good executive assistant is behind the success of every successful executive. So I think that respect is really necessary, and it's a mutual respect. Obviously, you're going to respect your executive and they're going to respect you. But I think that EAs work really hard and they should be acknowledged.
Yeah, I agree. So what makes an assistant a leader?
I think what makes an assistant a leader is somebody who is constantly learning and sharing the information. Someone who is really passionate about, just like I said, learning new tools, whether that's productivity tools that'll be helpful in the office, whether that's sharing a seminar or a meetup that they're going to. That's a learning experience for EAs. I think that's really disseminating information that you have yourself, and to make other people better, that makes you a leader.
Nice. So I don't think I sent you this question, but I'm just curious, how many times have you told a client or a potential client that's tried to hire you no?
Twice.
How did it go?
Does it count when they don't meet budget requirements? Because there's been a lot more than that before.
Yeah. I think more just like they have the money to pay you, but it's just not a fit.
Right. And so you just have to say that. You just say, one, I'm really honest if I don't have the skill set they need. I'm not going to lie about it. I have enough clients right now that I'm not going to lie and say that I can do something when I can't. So if one, I'll straight up say, I'm really sorry, I don't think we're a great fit due to my skill set, or we don't have anybody on the team that can fill that need for you. Or two, I'm not sure that I haven't actually said that personalities don't mesh before, but I've definitely had that conversation in my head that if this were to go forward, I would say, you know what, I don't know if we're the right fit for each other. Because I think that's something that's so important when you're working with an executive, whether you're in person, whether you're online. You need to mesh. You need to be able to talk to each other. They need to be approachable. You need to feel like you can talk to them. You need to feel like what am I trying to say? You need to feel comfortable with them and that you vibe with them, essentially, that you're together. And if you don't feel that, I don't believe it's something that you should pursue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be chemistry.
Exactly. Chemistry is very important in the EA executive role.
So what's something you would recommend if you're talking to an EA listening right now who's debating becoming a virtual assistant, whether it's starting their own VA firm or just simply transitioning from an in-office EA to a remote VA? What's kind of the number one thing you would recommend they do as they consider if that's their next career move?
I would say try it out before you make the leap. Don't quit your job and think that you're going to be successful right away, because finding clients is the hardest thing. And many people do it and don't find clients for months and months and months. So I would say if you can, pick it up as a side hustle first to see if you like it.
Awesome, Emily. Well, where can we find you online? And how can people get a hold of you, and how can we support what you're doing?
So my website is www.she'sagiven.com. You can find me on Instagram, instagram.com/she'sagiven. Facebook is at she'sagiven. So I'm consistent in all my handles there.
Nice.
And if you are interested in learning how to become a VA, if you're interested in coaching for starting your own business, if you're interested in working with a virtual assistant, or just have questions about it, please feel free to reach out and ask. I'm here to help you explore this possibility. And I'm also going to be launching a couple of courses and coaching soon. So if anybody's interested in that, please reach out.
Awesome. Well, I'll share your links in the show notes, even though they're nice and consistent and easy to remember. She's a Given. That's good branding, in my opinion.
Thank you.
But yeah, we'll make it easy for people to find you. And yeah, thanks for taking time out of your day. Best of luck to you and your business and your son and your Seattle reign. And yeah, thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeremy. It was great speaking with you.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com